It's here, Helldivers! Patch 4.1.0 is out and it's bringing so much democratic wonderfulness that reports are coming in already of spontaneous shouts of "For freedom!" from Helldivers everywhere, interrupting other people's day. As a basic summary, this patch is bringing a massive host of optimizations and fixes aimed to make the game playable for many of us, and what's more, a huge balance patch which is pretty much weapon buffs across the board, but buffs with a purpose, buffs that seek to add utility and variation in loadouts. What's more, enemies that have been called out as just not fun to fight have been adjusted to make them less so. Listen here, Helldivers, I'm going to dive into all of this, but I ask that you take this moment right now in history to smash that like button and give this channel a follow. Alright, with that said, here we go. When it comes to all the fixes and optimizations, I don't want to eat up your time going this line by line. The main point is that all of these changes is made to make the game more stable and smoother, but there are two items I want to call out that maybe have been glossed over by others. First, players can now aim down sights when activating the Lift 860 hover pack. This may be minor for most of you, but for those of us that enjoy this little gem, being able to ADS while in flight gives it a bit more utility. Another one is fixed projectiles hitting direct center of sights when extremely close to objects. This line might be overlooked, but I kind of am pretty excited about it. I need to do some testing here, but it's my hope that this means that shooting near cover is easier to do, since too often when you're hugging rocks or crates, and especially when you're fighting those automatons, maybe now you won't hit that cover's hitbox as often. Now on to the buffs. It's pretty wild. This is exciting. All right, there are two main themes when it comes to the changes that we got to our arsenal. One is light armor pen weapons deal more durable damage. Think of this as those rounds getting soft point ammo. I'll expand on that in a little bit, meaning it deals more damage to those squishy parts like the abdomen from the bile spewers. This gives you more reason to take light pen as it becomes a little bit better of a jack of all trades option. The second is better solidifying the role of close range weapons, namely SMGs and secondaries. Their damage has been increased, but their damage fall off has also been adjusted. It's a stat that they call drag, making these weapons fit into the more classically defined role that we see pretty much in every other shooter, where, you know, it does a ton of DPS, but you gotta get pretty close to your enemy. Here's how all these buffs play out. The SG-8P Punisher Plasma has actually had its projectile damage set to 0, but its explosion damage got a 50% increase. Before you call that hit to its projectile damage a nerf, hold on. See, I didn't realize this, but according to the patch interview, the weapon's plasma rounds had a proximity detection mechanic, meaning that the dang thing blew up before it hit its target anyways, making the projectile damage kinda meaningless. But remember, explosive damage bypasses durability, so anytime you have a weapon's explosion do more damage, that's kind of a big deal. So the spirit of this weapon as a crowd control option shines really bright now. The SG-8S Slugger, this OG got an 18% increase in standard damage and 17% increase in durable damage. This was done more to compensate for the massive drag or damage fall off that the shotgun has, which is 200%. Given how much this weapon gets outshined, I wonder if this change is really going to be enough to bring it back. The AR-23 Lib and Lib Carbine both got a 12.5 bump in standard damage and 47% bump to durable damage. The AR-23P, the Lib Pen, got a nice little nudge of 8% standard damage, again because it deals medium armor pen, it's not getting that increase in durable damage. The AR-23C, the Liberator Concussive, for anyone who remembers that thing, got a 15% increase in standard damage, 16.6 increase in durable damage, so this thing got a decent little all-around buff. Now, the focus of this guy is crowd control, it's not body count, so I will say that it is now more effective in taking out larger prey. So now that it actually has a total durable damage of 35, it's actually 60% more effective than the standard Lib when you're taking on enemies with those squishy bits, so don't write it off. The Tenderizer got a 36% increase in durable damage. The AR-32 Pacifier does get a little bit of a special note here. Again, it's more of a crowd control weapon, which is why its damage is so low, but that was adjusted a bit, 10%. But the main adjustment comes in the stun value, which went up 33%, giving it a better go at its core role. The MA5C, the Halo Assault Rifle, is getting a little bit of a tweak, 12.5% damage improvement, and the Sickle gets an 8% damage bump and a 20% increase to durable damage. Oh, and the Scorcher doesn't have its velocity impact when traveling through foliage anymore. Okay, let's get to the SMGs. Remember, the increases here in damage is to offset the massive increase in drag, and in each case that I mentioned, the drag doubled from 0.6 to 1.2. The Defender gets a 25% increase in damage and a 125% increase in durable damage. Really similar with the Knight, its damage increased by 28.5%, durable damage went up to 157%. The Reprimand, it's medium armor pen, so it just got an 8% damage improvement. The winner here, I think, is the Pummeler, getting a 21% damage adjustment, 157% durable damage improvement, and it got that Pacifier treatment by increasing its stun value to 2. The MS7 SMG got a damage bump of 14%, durable damage of 128%. The STA-11, the Killzone SMG, received a pretty hefty 28% damage increase, along with the 157% increase in durable damage. And the last bit here, the PLAS 39 Accelerator Rifle, that's our sniper rifle, gets 4 more mags, not bad, and ergonomics improved by a lot, 50%. So it should help make it better at what it's supposed to do, a long-distance accurate weapon to help you nail those weak spots. All right, let's run through the changes to secondaries. The CQC2 Saber hits harder with 13.6% adjustment to damage, 18% adjustment to durable. Now we're going to get a little bit of differentiation here in melee, since we got the Combat Hatchet, which was basically a reskin before, has a 45% increase to both standard and durable damage. So that's kind of cool, some distinction in melee weapons. And along those lines, the Machete got a bump of 17% to bring it to 200 damage, and a 25% gain in durable. That's not too bad. Almost all ballistic sidearms got that same change to drag as the SMGs, doubling its damage fall off, so keep that in mind. The Peacemaker got a bump of 11.7% to standard, 20% to durable. Redeemer got 16.7% improvement to standard, 140 to durable. The Verdict, which is medium armor pen, just got an 8% bump to standard damage. The SOCOM, a slight tweak here to standard damage of 10%. And the Warrant, since it has propelled rounds, actually got its drag to 0, which is the same as the Dominator, has the same mechanic. And the Gravity, or the bullet drop, has been reduced by 70%. On to throwables. Boy, the Dynamite got a serious bump, folks. Yep, you'll have one less, but it has a much bigger bang with heavy armor pen, demolition damage significant enough to close a Titan hole, and 43% improvement to its already massive damage. The Pineapple Nade got a bit of a rework with a ton more shrapnel that has increased range and a 42% bump in damage, and I think more importantly, it got an increase in its demolition value that allows you to use it to take out bug holes. Alright, then the Seeker Grenade also kind of got a little bit of a role adjustment. It's now going to prioritize air targets unless you mark a target yourself, and it's going to go after that. Combine that with a 25% increase in damage, and I'm going to have to take another look at this thing. To finish off throwables, you can carry one more of both the G6 Frag and the G3 Smoke, and everyone's favorite throwing knives got a bit of a bump, 20% to standard damage and 50% to durable. Look, knives, in my opinion, they just need a rework. Unless you can, like, pick up the thrown knives that, you know, you've tossed at enemies, or their damage is also, like, a damage over time. I just don't see this change in damage doing much. Maybe they're going to save that for later. Alright, now to the stratagems. Man, I'm going to kick this off with the Epoch because I've been one of the few that loved this thing when it first launched. Once you got into the rhythm, you really wouldn't blow yourself up. Well, now maybe more of you will give it a second chance. You can now charge it up even further, another quarter second, but you'll get a more noticeable effect when it's overcharged to avoid being turned into chunky salsa. Add to that a 25% damage increase and a demolition value that finally lets you blow up bug holes, and you're going to have a really great mid-tier to AT solution here. The Stalwart, my favorite support weapon, got that light armor pen treatment, 12.5% damage increase, and 47% durable damage adjustment. The Flamethrower has gotten a little bit more staying power with a capacity increase of 15% and extra starting and max spare canisters, but you're going to find out soon that there's a reason for this. The AMR, having needed a little bit more of a niche to fill, is now more spammable with an extra starting mag and 2 extra spare mags with a decent increase of 25% to durable. Inexplicably, the autocannon, the support weapon, which the devs said was the gold standard, got a damage increase of 25%. I don't think it needed it, but sweet. Alright, the GL52 de-escalator got a bit of love here with an 81% standard damage improvement and a 27% bump in durable damage, but this is to offset the fix that they put into place. I don't know if you remember. When this weapon first came out, it dealt more damage the more players were in the lobby, so they fixed it, removing that extra damage, and I guess when they did, they found that it was underwhelming, so now that they kind of fixed that bug, they put that damage back. The Solo Silo finally does not aggro enemies. This is really cool because you can finally scatter these things around and use them when you need it instead of panic firing it off because a single hunter appeared. It's also a bit tougher so an errant round from you or an ally doesn't destroy it. The Rail Cannon Strike did get a cooldown improvement of 14%, bringing it to 3 minutes without your ship upgrades. I mean, that's okay. In my opinion, it's not enough. It's a single shot stratagem that doesn't consistently do a ton of damage to the massive enemies. So, I don't know. I mean, with so many really quick, effective ways to deal with massive enemies with different stratagems, or even just with your standard kind of, primaries and secondary loadouts, I don't really see that, coming into the forefront a lot more, but let me know in the comments. The Patriot Exosuit got a bit of a buff here, allowing your missiles to keep their armor penetration when you're hitting at wider angles, and 350 more rounds to its minigun. Now, before we go into the changes to enemies, let's mention the Urchin and Sterilizer are missing from this list. I was kind of hoping that these were going to get some attention, but I don't know, maybe next time? Okay, so again, when it comes to the changes to the enemies, it wasn't about making them easier. It was about making them more fun to fight. This approach is really clear when you take a look at the enemies that they adjusted. So about that change in capacity to the Flamethrower, it's because many of the bad guys listed here are now less vulnerable to fire. The Flesh Mob now has weak spots, which is all those heads. Every time you pop one of these, it deals extra damage. Its main health dropped by 16.6%, but its durability went up. So that makes sense, right? You don't want to hit these things with rounds that just go through it. You want explosions, and now to a lesser extent, light pen weapons, which is why I think of the changes that happened a lot to a lot of the ARs and the SMGs is like them getting soft point ammo. The Elevated Overseer now isn't just as tough as its land-bound brothers, which is great. It has generally less health, and its head can now be hit with light armor pen weapons. This is awesome, right? Since these things are harder to track, so they shouldn't be as tanky. The Leviathan got its weapons changed from those kind of burst shots to beams, so that makes it a little easier to dodge since you kind of see where those beams are. And on that note, they will now only spawn on city maps, which is also good since you'll have a lot more cover. The Rupture Bugs, mainly the Rupture Warrior, isn't as frustrating. It moves slower underground, it can be more easily dodged when it's jumping out to hit you, it has a smaller hitbox when striking you, and no longer will just destroy your turrets while it's still underground. The Rupture Spewer will take a little bit more time to attack you from the moment it emerges. The Bile Spewer has a larger mouth weak spot, which, as you can see in the video, is actually kind of cool. I mean, it takes like 1 or 2 shots when they're midstream. Now, you probably don't still want to stand in that stream, but you can take these things out when they are attacking you. And as someone who has about 100 loadout videos, I'm going to tell you that that's a bit of a game changer, since when you're building loadouts for Terminids, One of the main things that you have to keep into account are biospewers, since they are armored. They mostly require medium armor pen, and now you kind of have a little bit more of an expansion for the role of light pen weapons against the Terminid. Brood commanders are a bit harder to set on fire, so are warriors, which is fine. And the warriors have a bit more durable head and body. Again, it's a nod to light armor pen. The Dragon Roach. Man, thank Liberty, thank Managed Democracy, their spawn rate has been lowered. And if you tear apart those wings, it will finally drop. Those wings now have their own health pool, and they take a lot more damage from explosions. That's great. When it comes to Hive Lords, you should see smoother frame rates when they come out. Now switching over to the bots, Stealth Play got a little bit of a buff. Troopers that are guarding bases are not going to pop a flare as soon as they come under attack. They're actually going to have to spot you before. Devastators are harder to set on fire. That's fine. They're a little bit more durable as well. Command bunker turrets won't ragdoll you. Again, I have no problem with these things being deadly. I just didn't want to be ragdolled as much, which is good. Factory Striders are less vulnerable to fire. That's fine. Scout Striders have more durable top shields. All right, and the War Strider. All right. I mean, the devs pretty much took a line out of one of my last videos on the matter. So you folks that say I wasn't on target, you are wrong. And again, I'm going to say this for the people in the back. Never have I said, nor have I heard anyone in the community say that War Striders are difficult. They are not. If you have a Recoilless or a Quasar, they're easy to take out. That's not the point. But they echoed the statement, why does a faction that has been designed to have weak spots exempt the War Strider? It shouldn't have. So beyond the fact that you're going to be less ragdolled by it shooting less grenades, and the plasma cannons themselves won't ragdoll you, it now has weak spots, which is its eyes and vents in the back, as they should have in the very beginning, and they even said that. Alright, well, if you've made it this far, you are more dear to me than I can possibly imagine, Helldiver. I'm going to be in the field testing out all these new changes and hopefully not stumbling upon any new bugs that commonly get introduced when we get patches from Arrowhead, so let's see what landmines figuratively I stepped on, and I will let you know. Until next time, happy diving, y'all.